He left his pregnant wife in the middle of a storm, slammed the door, and never looked back. 25 years later, he walked into a bank desperate for a loan and found his daughter sitting on the other side of the desk. That's where this story explodes, but to understand why it hit so hard, you have to go back to the beginning. Her name was Clara Monroe, a literature professor in her early 20s, bright, gentle, and full of dreams bigger than the small town outside Raleigh where she grew up. She thought she'd found her forever in Richard Hale, a slick music investor 10 years older who swept her off her feet with weekend trips, expensive gifts, and the kind of charm that made people forget to breathe. Everyone told her she was lucky he was already building an empire. But Clara didn't care about the empire. She believed in him. She thought love could soften the sharp edges of ambition. It didn't take long to realize she was more trophy than partner. Richard timed their dinners, critiqued her wardrobe like it was a stock report, and reminded her that the only thing she needed to deliver was a son. A son to carry his name, inherit his millions, prove his legacy meant something. Clara tried to keep the peace, hoping the good parts outweighed the bad. She held on until the day the doctor smiled and said, "Congratulations, you're having a healthy baby girl." Clara's heart swelled. A daughter. Someone to love, to protect, to pass on the kindness her grandmother had once poured into her. But the silence in that exam room was colder than the gel on her stomach. Richard didn't smile, didn't touch her hand. He stood, adjusted his cufflinks, and muttered, 3 years wasted. By the time they pulled into their mansion's driveway that night, the storm outside had nothing on the storm inside. "Pack your things," he ordered, his voice echoing through marble halls. Clara's fingers clutched the staircase railing. "What did you just say?" "You heard me. You and that mistake aren't welcome here. This is your child too, Richard. Flesh and blood. Flesh and blood doesn't mean legacy," he snapped. "A daughter is a dead end." He grabbed her suitcase, stuffed clothes inside with no regard, dragged it to the door, and hurled it down the steps like it was trash. Clara begged, pleaded. She deserves better than this, but he was already pouring a drink, already turning his back. When the door slammed behind her, she stepped into freezing rain, carrying not just a suitcase, but the weight of betrayal that could crush a soul. She might not have survived that night if not for Tho. Michael Grant, a widowed banker driving home through the sleet. He spotted her huddled at a bus stop, soaked, clutching her belly. He could have kept driving. Instead, he pulled over, offered his coat, and with a voice that carried quiet strength said, "You can't stay out here, ma'am. Let me help." Clara resisted at first. Pride makes you say crazy things when you're broken. But her body trembled. Her baby kicked like a tiny reminder to accept mercy, and she followed him. His house was small, lined with books and hand-stitched quilts, filled with the scent of lavender his late wife had loved. Michael made her grilled cheese and tomato soup, the simplest meal, but to Clara, it tasted like salvation. For the first time in years, someone looked at her not as a vessel or a disappointment, but as a human being worth protecting. She told him everything between sips of warm milk, how her husband tossed her aside for daring to carry a girl. Michael didn't flinch. "Then he's not a man," he said simply. "Any fool can make money. A real man stands by his family." Weeks later, when a blizzard rolled through, Clara went into labor. Roads closed, power flickered, but Michael drove her through white-out streets with steady hands, whispering encouragement while she clenched his fingers through contractions. At 11:43 that night, under the hum of hospital lights, she gave birth to Evelyn Rose Monroe, 8 pounds of fierce, screaming miracle. Michael stood there, tears streaking his face, when tiny fingers wrapped around his own. And in that moment, he wasn't just helping a stranger. He became a father again, not by blood, but by choice. Evelyn grew up in Michael's modest home, surrounded by love. She watched her mother rebuild a life teaching at community college, watched Michael volunteer at literacy programs, saw what real strength looked like, quiet, steady kind. By the time she finished school, Evelyn wasn't just bright, she was relentless. She climbed her way through finance, earned respect in rooms her biological father could only buy his way into, and by 30, she was running one of the biggest banks in Charlotte. Now picture this Richard Hale, older gaunter, clutching a leather briefcase that suddenly felt too heavy walking into that bank. His empire was crumbling, partners pulling out debts piling high. He needed a loan to survive. The receptionist directed him to the executive suite. He strode in, rehearsing his pitch until his eyes landed on the woman behind the desk. Honey-colored hair, steady eyes, a presence that commanded silence. "Good afternoon, Mr. Hale," she said smoothly, scanning his file. "I'm Evelyn Monroe, branch manager." The name hit him like a brick through stained glass. His throat tightened. "Monroe?" She didn't blink. "Yes, my mother's name." For the first time in his life, Richard was speechless. He fumbled through his request, tried to lean on charm, on arrogance that once opened every door. But Evelyn cut through every excuse. "You abandoned us. Do you remember rain pouring suitcase down the stairs, a young woman pregnant and terrified? That's the empire you built, sir. Not just music, not just money, an empire of cruelty." Reporters caught wind fast. Cameras flashed outside. Evelyn didn't shout, didn't rage. Her calm dismantled him more effectively than any scandal. "This bank," she said, sliding the loan paperwork closed, "does not invest in men who consider daughters worthless." "Good day, Mr. Hale." He left humiliated cameras chasing headlines screaming, "Millionaire meets the daughter he rejected." By evening, it wasn't just gossip, it was a firestorm. Partners cut ties overnight. Exposés revealed the ruthless way he'd destroyed family businesses, charities, yanked his name from plaques. Within months, his empire was dust, his mansion sold, his second wife gone. And when a heart attack finally took him, the obituary was 2 lines long. No mourners, no legacy, nothing. Evelyn didn't go to the funeral. She sent flowers, a simple card. "From the daughter you never knew." The funeral director later said it was the loneliest gesture he'd ever witnessed. Years passed. In a sunlit kitchen that once smelled of tomato soup and lavender, Clara and Michael sat at the table with Evelyn and her husband, a schoolteacher who adored her. Evelyn placed her hand on her belly, smiling. "You're going to be grandparents." Michael's eyes filled with the same tears he'd cried when he first held her. "Boy or girl?" he asked. Evelyn just laughed. Does it matter? It didn't. Not anymore. And that's where I'll leave you, with one man buried in silence and one daughter proving that worth isn't determined by gender, money, or legacy. It's determined by love, by the families we build, by the people who choose us when others throw us away. So I want to know, what do you think? Should Evelyn have confronted her father more viciously, made him pay even harder, or was denying him that loan already the perfect justice? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share the video if it stirred something in you. And remember, every life, every child, every daughter or son is priceless.